No doubt. I definitely think those are probably the top three if we're looking at which is at the very top. But I think all roles definitely have their own quirks. So again, any more questions? And for anyone who has just joined us once again, that we are just waiting on the next lobby to be set up because we had a remake, and I believe we do have the champion select picks and bans once again. We've already gone through this and we had the bans before. These are different bans because we're just remaking, as we said, and the picks are going to be exactly the same, but with the exception of Mordekaiser being Syndra.
Yep, and a few questions were also in the chat. Now obviously we could talk about this, but we've already gone over old ground, asking why placeholder picks are a factor of these tournaments. Now Pulse, you are much better at explaining this stuff than I am, so I'm going to pass it over to you, and now I've said that you'll probably make a mistake of it, but try your best. Why do we have placeholders?
Okay, so because we're not on the tournament client, as a question we stated before, is because no one, like everyone will not have all the champions, meaning that if you don't have a champion and you want to swap up, then you have to remake the game because there's no other way to do it. So as a result, you put in a placeholder, something that people don't really use very often, and then you'll just remake, you'll go back in, and then you go through the champion select once again through the tournament draft. It'll take another couple minutes, but it's better than going with a champion that one, you don't actually know how to use, or two, going into the game regardless. So it makes sense to just kind of do that. It will take a little while, but again, there's no workaround if you're using the live blinds.
Yep, definitely very much the case. So I hope that has answered some of the questions in chat and cleared some of that confusion as well. But regardless, we are almost into the delay. A couple things to mention here. One, Charu has Ari, so it's going to be Chari, as somebody said in the chat previously. And we do have another Vi lock-in as well, Pulse, on Eco, a player I know plays a very, very strong Vi. So lots to look forward to in this game. After nearly an hour and 15 minutes of waiting, we finally got some beautiful League of Legends to cast. However, you're going to have to wait another 2 minutes 40 before we are live into game number 1 between MeetYourMakers and Gbot. We'll be right back right after this delay.
Music is a drug. Music is a drug. Music is a drug. Music is a drug. Drug. Bitch, I'm still a high roller. I don't be black. 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 I don't need a dime, bitch, I'm still a high roller. women, glow sticks and shots. Naked women, glow sticks and shots. Shots, 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 shots. Now if I ever lose focus, know my heart's been always in it. That's why groupies always notice either way you try to spin it. Fuck opinionated critics, see how I roll. Tell the tour bus driver, take the expressway zone. Cause when you're crossing city limits, while knots can take a toll, I don't really know my limits, I think it's something you should know. Only time I feel alive is when those stage lights shine. There's passion mixed with patience, dedication on the grind. Medicated all the time, but I'm quick to switch my style up just to fuck with the people that said we couldn't make it, to watch them get riled up. And to everyone behind us, here's a petition, you should sign it to eliminate the haters and the soul of their vagina. I don't need a dime, bitch, I'm still a high roller. I don't be black.
Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to Chaos TV's live coverage of the EUWChallenger Series number 13. It is semi-finals day, the second semi-finals of the day, with the first one going to Copenhagen. Wolf Death Sentence comes out though, so for myself, Neptuno's going very low, and he will be falling for the first blood. Makler taking that one down with Corky. Definitely not a champion that you want to be gifting that to, definitely not a player you want to be gifting that to. Either way though, as I was about to say, it is MeetYourMakers up against Gbots in this first game. Met is joined by Pulse. Pulse is having some issues with the spectator at the moment, so fingers crossed that's going to be resolved soon. Now that I can't see any other action kicking off, Pulse, how's it going for you, dude? Any more luck?
I'm just logging back in. It might have been because I didn't update my client for a while, and because, you know, there was the change to the initial login, so that might be the issue for me. So I'm just going to do that. I'll be in the game very shortly. If not, I can find a workaround.
I believe the pool party skins were released, so that may have been one of the reasons why. So it's another thing as well, guys. Also, Bass, could you please mute your microphone, because I can keep hearing myself and it's a bit off-putting.
Quite distracting.
Thanks, dude. It's just if I get any louder than just whispering that I can hear myself. Regardless though, we have started off this game. Makler with first blood, as I mentioned previously, went back, picked up some boots and also health potions. It's going to be a fairly standard opening here with the purple team of Gbots picking up their blue buff. And in the meanwhile, actually, Aatrox is stealing red by himself. So really ballsy play from Makata. Now the dual lanes are coming head to head. Makler is on the hunt for his second kill. Not going to be happening as the grasping roots does land.
Yep, I should be in game very shortly. I can get back into the action. Hold off 2 more seconds.
Okay, well actually at top lane, I'll just jump in here because we've got a gank coming in from Makata and also Coupon. Dragon is in all kinds of trouble and will be taken down there. Didn't even pop off the flash. I think one of the reasons for that is realizing that he would have died anyway, so there's no point dying and then crippling yourself later on in the lane by using that flash. Are you into the game now, Pulse?
Yes, indeed I am.
Wonderful.
Outstanding. So I'm just changing the scoreboard for myself. So right now we've already had a lot of action coming in from MYM, looking very strong against Gbot. We'll see what they can do in return. Their composition is very well thought out, I will give them that much. Gbot look very strong. If you look at this game on paper, I would honestly favour Gbot's team. I really like what they've done with it. So we'll see if they can pull it back. In late game, they have such a good peel composition for Vayne, as long as she gets some kills, and as talking about Vayne, taking some hits from Living. So if they get Vayne fed, I think a lot of the focus early game needs to be from Vi to make sure that lane sort of snowballs, because if they do, they'll be in exceptional shape. If not, it will really hurt them.
Oh, Death Sentence coming out. Vayne is flashing up red again. Remember that Jims used to play for Giants. He used to be in LCS alongside Tremnek and Wizards, so this bot lane is very experienced. They are top tier players right now, but Vayne just doesn't do very well early game against the likes of Corky, and Thrash could be having a gank coming in. Eco's actually charging up his Vault Breaker. They're caught. Makate completely unawares there, popping off the Bloodwell. They have used the Ignite. Can they finish off the pieces? No, they can't. Darklight into Flash, very quickly escaping. Top lane, however, Kubon is now in a lot of trouble. He's popped off the Ghost, running away from Renekton. So lots of action, Pulse, but not a kill falling in those few seconds.
That was very slick from Mokata. That, like, in terms of mechanics, that was very, very smooth. And Eco just in the enemy jungle, looking to see if he can counter jungle, or maybe if Mokata had decided to go for the Wraiths, because you can definitely do that on low HP, especially with Aatrox because of his Bloodthirst, so he can just actually carry on sustaining. Eco just going to jump out with Vault Breaker, and Charo also went into the bottom jungle. I think he realized that because Vi didn't pass through that ward in the river once again, that he must still be in that jungle, but Vault Breaker actually means that there is an exception to that rule, or way of thinking. So in the bot lane, Jim's still taking huge hits, and this is honestly a lane from LCS right here, because Jim's of course wasn't Giants when they were in LCS, and so were MYM. So right now, this is really top tier play.
Yeah, that's very, very true, and a good point as well. But as I mentioned previously, you know, Vayne in Season 2, if you go back there as a pause comes in, so that'll let us finish our points. Vayne in Season 2 was renowned for having a fairly weak early game. The whole point in picking a Vayne was to be safe early game, get a bit stronger in mid, and then carry late. Initially, what Riot actually said themselves is that they felt that Vayne was a bit too strong early game, and thus they nerfed her slightly, not just to Blade of the Rune King, but also Final Hour. However, as it's going thus far, Pulse, in this lane, Corki and Thresh are just able to harass so much from range, there's very little that Vayne can do. Also, Tremnek is fairly squishy, so if they do go for a big trade, they can come out second best, and that's not even mentioning the fact that Makler picked up the first blood, so he's got the mobility advantage with the boots of speed, and also has a few health potions to use, so it's just not happy days for Jims.
Agreed. The reason why they picked out Zyra is because she won't want to continuously poke with Vayne. What she wants to do is it's more control and zoning. Because what Zyra brings to the table is not only the plants, but also the grasping roots. So if we do see Libik getting very aggressive, Tremnik can counter-initiate so easily. And especially with the plant, he might also connect onto that. But with Eco coming into the bot lane, Pins one against the wall, Jim still following up with Makler, getting so aggressive, finds himself on the receiving end of Eco. Meanwhile, Dark Passage comes out, Makler comes back into contention in the lane. Jims and indeed Makler, both of the AD carries dropping so low. Sitting on top of a ward, they will know Eco's current position. Aatrox is actually backing on off though, and they will be clearing this ward. So lots of action, but no kills.
I've got to say, from an AD carry's perspective, Makler's mechanics there were beautiful to watch. He was putting so much focus on Jims and so much harassment and threat that Jims didn't even turn around to attack once Ignite goes down. However, as I'm speaking here, instantly condemned away as to stop any initial destruction coming in from Makler and Libik as well. But previously, Makler attacked Jims enough that Jims was just so focused on running away, did not auto-attack once. That allowed Makler to escape from Vi without dying, and also, just getting it down to the T, didn't even pop off his barrier there, Pulse. So Valkyrie'd away with style without using his summoner spell. So going into this next trade is going to look a lot stronger than Vayne, who has popped the barrier beforehand.
Yeah, and Tremnik really has to be on point in this bot lane. If he puts a foot wrong, or is like a split second off with his abilities and timing, then it will result in a kill instantly on Jim. So he has to really be reading from the same page to be on that wavelength in top lane. A trade coming off with Dragon and Kuban, trading some auto attacks, turning around with Ruthless Predator, and we'll be backing on off. A very explosive top lane, I have to feel, because Jax really wants to get a few levels under his belt. I like to compare him to Irelia. In the sense that the Time Bomb champions, they'll always become a monster in late game, but there is a possibility to shut them down early game, because up until about level 9 they're not that strong, but Dragon turns around, Mechano into the brush, nukes him down immediately, Ruthless Predator into the rest of his combo, Slice comes out and doesn't follow up onto Kuban, but just great knowledge of his character and knowing that he was level 6 with Dominus.
Yes, and also realizing that Bloodwell was still on cooldown from the previous fight that they had in mid lane. So Dragon going ham there and being rewarded with that kill. So Gbot do manage to claw back a kill here. Kuban is fairly low right now, counter-striking away. Slice and Dice from Renekton will be just fine at bot lane. However, Vayne is trying to get rid of any onslaught from Libik and Makler to save Tremnek. Save the Zyra, manages to do so thus far, but again, it's very one-sided of bot lane thus far, Pulse. They're consistently pushing this lane and being harassment.
Yeah, in the mid lane we had a gank coming in from Vi, and that was actually very clever, because when she hits level 6, probably not off this buff, but if she picks up another buff or another camp, she probably will hit 6, meaning that Charu won't have his Spirit Rush. Charu actually fought very quickly and used his ultimate instead of his flash, because there's a much longer cooldown on that, but when Vi hits 6, she'll look for another gank, and she won't have that luxury. So Charu is in a bad position as Leaf's power comes through, drags him into the tower, and Neptuna drops incredibly low with Ignite still ticking off. It's going to be close. That survives on 48 hit points.
The power of a good charm, saving a life and also nearly picking up the kill, forcing Syndra to go back, which allows Ari to get a bit more farm here. Needs to be careful. Eco's fram from the side. Dragon's actually flashing up red at the top. Ignite comes down. Jax will be able to pick up the pieces, and Kubon gets that red buff and the kill. So it's been looking fairly one-sided at top lane, but suddenly out of nowhere, Kubon gets some retaliation. Eco's now caught himself. Makata did manage to steal away the blue buff. Is it going to cost his life, however? Not looking likely. Vault Breaker comes up, charges through the wall, will be a-okay.
Yeah, and Mokasa didn't follow up. He knew he didn't have flash and he didn't have dark flight, so he couldn't interrupt the direction Vi was going, because a normal counterplay in that situation is to put yourself between Vi and the wall, meaning that Vi actually can't escape. But because he didn't have any of those instant gap closing abilities, he just had to back off, and he knew he couldn't catch Vi.
Yeah, so just smart play, realizing when you're beaten and just going back. Dark flight through the wall is potentially coming down to bot lane. They may be trying to play on blue buff, saying, okay, you stole our blue, we're going to return the favor right now. Vi is coming away from spawn, so Eco is trying to get hot in pursuit. Spirit Rush coming around from the side, the charm misses. Had that have landed, I feel Charu would have gone all in and tried to pick up the kill. But regardless, they are going to be starting off this blue buff, and they do pick it up. So good news right now in terms of that little exchange for MeetYourMakers. They are being caught out of position. Darkflight comes through from Makata, grasping roots on Libic, but they will live to fight for another day, and they should be fine. Vault Breaker's being charged. I don't think Eco wanted to go into that situation though.
Especially when he's aggressing onto Fresh, because Fresh, out of all these characters, is the most difficult to do so. Maybe Jax as well if he's charging up Counter-Strike, because Libic has Flay, and if he times it right, which these players are definitely capable of doing, he can knock Vi back during her dash. Meanwhile, we have Makata potentially on the receiving end of an angry Vi, who doesn't choose to go all in, and actually smites away the red buff. So Eco completely on point in this game. They'll know that she's around the area if they want to aggress onto her. Final hours pop by Jim, follow onto Maka as well. Great use of Dark Passage, drags him into the tower with Flay, and great juke out of the way of the death sentence. So now Libic recalls with his ally of Makla, also Makata coming down just in case Vi is sticking around. So great mechanics.
Yeah, very much the case, but Eco has, as you mentioned previously, just been stealing buffs left, right and center, stealing the blue and then getting the red buff. So even though Makata and the rest of the MeetYourMakers did manage to claim that last blue buff, they still end up being on the receiving end. However, they are ahead in total gold by just 711 minutes. That is nothing really to write home about. That's nothing out of the ordinary. So Kubon's going to keep pushing top. Zyra's continuously flashing up red, and here comes the assault and battery from the side. Charu is taking so much damage right now from the ultimate as well. The unleashed power from Syndra, Ignite ticking down, and somehow Charu survives about 15 hit points.
Yeah, 15 hit points. Meanwhile, the bot lane, Jim's whole flash from Libic, the counterplay with Condemn was so at the right time. Unbelievable timing from Jim's. That was crazy to watch.
Pixel perfect. Condemn was just beautifully done, and will manage to get them away, as Zyra has been living on a razor's edge this entire game, Pulse. Has to be said, consistently surviving on no HP, no death somehow, some way, and a lot of that has been down to Jim's getting those condemns at the right place at the right time, and plus the fact that Vi has spent a lot of time at bot lane. So we were saying before about, Vayne's going to have a hard time early game. That has been reflected. The CS difference is fairly significant, 93 to 77, but going into mid game is where Vayne is going to start to come in her own, where she's going to begin I should say, to become that very scary AD carry that we all fear in solo queue.
Yeah, and Vayne doesn't necessarily need to be exactly the same as her opposing AD carry, she just needs to get past them in the long run, because as a character she'll scale a lot harder. Charm lands in the mid lane, Neptune takes some hits from Over Deception, and follows it with Force of Will, so nothing really just happening, because Charu might have all-ined if he had his ultimate, because he still has usage of his Ignite, so might be saving that meal in the mid lane. Kremik on the point of contention with Dragon Force comes down, Libic returns with the bots, and the like they are backing off. Makla's still trading off with Jims though. Both the supports now the aggression from Libic. He's looking to be on the front lines as they turn around grasping roots. Had he stayed in for another second, that would have been some very hard punishment. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Neptuna has been found by Charu. Jumps over the wall with Flap. Into the spirit for the extra damage. In with the charm and the reverse wing of Orbityception picks up the kill.
Yes, and at bot lane, Corki went one, make that 2 kills to the good against this duo lane. A 2 versus 2, paying out dividends for Makler. That first blood, as I've mentioned previously, was so influential on how bot lane has managed to go. And now, with the 2 picks at bot lane, of course you're going to transition into the Drake. It is completely free. Dragon will be falling to the side of MeetYourMakers, who as a result will move ahead by about 3k gold. So looking good for them right now. The Polish powerhouses looking to force this game number 1 in their advantage.
They're looking so strong in terms of mechanics, because even without jungler ganks from Makata, he's just quite happy to sit in his own jungle, farm away, get strong himself, because in terms of ganks, he just doesn't need to go for them, because his lanes are winning by themselves, something you don't really expect to see when you hit this level of play. Almost never do you see, well, not almost never, but it happens a lot less where you see a lane straight up outplaying their lane opponent. In the bot lane, it's to be slightly more expected because of Vayne. She will have the slightly weaker laning phase, and in the mid lane, less so, because Syndra really has a very good laning phase because it's very skill based, a lot like Lee Sin. So it's somewhat concerning in the early game because they have to be at a decent point to utilize their composition. Meanwhile, Makata finds himself caught, and Charu takes the hit of the Q from Neptuno, but moving back into their own jungle. Force of Will moves blue buff over the wall. With Jax now coming in, they realize what's up. Can they get there in time? The answer is no, with Eco picking up the blue buff with Smite.
Just to go back onto that duo bot war down there, I feel so much is centralized around Zyra's Stranglethorns. Once Stranglethorns was used there, you could actively see that Corki and Thresh were like, okay, these two are ripe for the taking. They have no disengage anymore. You land a hook, they die. Because as soon as you land a hook from Libic, the Gatling gun's going to come in. Missile Barrage, remember, that he has already picked up the Triforce, but at the time had Phage and a Sheen. So Phosphorus Bomb, Missile Barrage is doing a lot of damage because it stacks off of both AD and AP, whereas Phosphorus Bomb is AP. So it's doing a lot of damage and in quick succession. That's not even mentioning the damage that Thresh is putting out with the box as well. So in a heartbeat, they just both got Crush Pulse. There's nothing they could do as soon as Stranglethorns was used.
Yeah, and that's kind of representative of their entire team in general, because when we hit mid-game, we'll see MYM having the opportunity to really push home the game. The bot comes in from a perfect play from Libic, but good zoning control from Tremdeck. Meanwhile, Mukasa comes in alongside Ari. This is a complete massacre as Ari picks up both in a heartbeat. The damage comes in, 2-0, coming in from the powerhouses that are MYM.
I see what you did there, a complete massacre. And Makate's Atrox would certainly agree with that statement. That was brutal at top lane. They are looking to get somewhat of a retaliation to retort back onto that kill. There goes Kubon, he is running away. Ghost has already been used. You've got an angry Renekton with Dominus and also a Vi. He's not going to last very long. But a 1 kill for 2 and a potential tower overwall is not worth it for Gbots.
Eco is really feeling the pinch of having his lanes be behind, because as a jungler he can't just gank a lane and expect it to go well now. He has to play it incredibly smart. It's almost getting to the point where he has to think away from ganks and more towards the mid game of how they want to play the team fights, because in terms of laning he really just can't go for them. And meanwhile at the top lane, Jim finds himself caught from over the wall from Living, doesn't quite land the play, jumps over the wall, auto attack comes in with the extended damage in from Flay, and Makler last rocket barrage comes out, and Jims is still not quite dead. Meanwhile, Chara gets shut down in the mid lane.
Yes, so much burst damage coming out from Ari, but when it's a 2 versus 1, your back is always against the wall, and they do manage to pick that one up. So they're going to try and retaliate again. A 1-for-1 trade, both mid laners isn't too bad, but importantly for Gbot, they're trying to pick up this tower. Kubon though, party pooping in, running in right now on the Jax with a Triforce of his own. So already 2 Triforces picked up for MeetYourMakers. Freak would be very happy right about now.
He would, and I'm not sure about party pooping in though. I mean, that's a new one personally for me. But in the mid lane, Makata coming in with Kuban just to push down this middle turret, Massacre Pop as well, just for the extra attack speed and seeding ability. Zico comes in looking to defend the turret, but chucking it down to half is actually a very good trade for his ultimate. So now, with Drake coming in 1 minute 48, we'll see which team can pick this one up. And I would give a wager to MYM being the one who's going to instigate that fight, or instigate the taking of the dragon.
It certainly would appear to be the case, because they're definitely in the driver's seat. One thing I would say, even though 9-3 does look very one-sided, gold difference is not that huge. 3.6k, yes, it's significant, but it's not a game-breaking amount. However, if this tower goes down, of course, that is going to be another 1,000 global gold going into the hands of MeetYourMakers. However, it will not be dropping 404 hit points remaining. But in team fights, they just look stronger right now. They've been playing with a lot more confidence. You've got two Triforces we mentioned before. Cubon being chased away from Dragon and making sure he doesn't pick up that top tower. Regardless though, Gbots, I definitely think that MeetYourMakers in a fight on Drake would be much stronger. So it would not surprise me if they go for that in about 50 seconds time.
Yeah, excellent point. When they hit the Drake fight, I straight up think that MYM on paper just looks stronger. Unless there's severe mechanical outplay from Gbot, they just can't fight them. Vayne hasn't hit the point where she's doing tons of damage, and she has no real recourse when it comes to staying out of the way of CC and straight up burst damage. Because if we look at Ahri right now, for 1-on-1, she's their big playmaker. Not only that, Makata, Makla, but Makata's also looking strong. Makla, as an AD carry, he can sit at the back, he's great and very maneuverable in these team fights, so it just does not look good at all for Gbot. If they outplay them, if they get a pick, yes, they could do that. They have extremely superb good picking potential with not only Vi, but also Syndra and also Zyra. So single target CC and picking potential. Vayne on the bot lane potentially caught out as Makata comes in, slows him with the Blades of Torment, looking for the death sentence, stays still, gets himself okay. Neptuno in the mid lane, both of the AP carries drop, and an instant, and no assist for Eco as he came in to clean up.
Yeah, a single tear will be rolling down his cheek right about now. He wanted that assist real bad, but it's not going to be a case. For the second time, the two mid laners take each other out. And also, one thing to note is that not only are MeetYourMakers picking up Drake for free, it would appear, but Libic picked up a real opportune timing Oracles. Realizing that Dragon was up, he went back, picked up an Oracles, cleared all the vision from Gbot around that area. Really smart play. It's stuff like that, Pulse, that can just give you the small advantages that do actually convert into yet another objective. And you can see a few moments ago I was talking about a 3.6k goal differential. It's now escalated into almost a 6k goal differential.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting worse and worse, but we do have Eco looking to make a play in the form of taking this blue buff. Reaction coming in from Kuban. Jump over the wall with Vault Breaker. No flash comes through. He is, of course, running Ghost, and Makata doesn't quite catch him in time, nor did he want to trade on that HP. Doesn't want to be using that passive of Bloodwell just as of yet. So valuable in a trade, diving, and also team fights. So wants to hold on to that one. And also, right now, Gbot are in a difficult position, and knowing that their late game is probably slightly stronger, but Jack's doing decently well just means he's always going to be a counter to almost anyone as he trades off against Dragon. Pops Grandmaster's might. Doesn't decide to go all in, though. Dragon just has great ability to get out of dodge when he needs to. Meanwhile, in the top jungle, Libic finds himself by, jumps over the wall with Vault Breaker. And Eco has actually maxed out the Vault Breaker along with Excessive Force, so he also has that mobility.
I honestly feel that from Gbot's perspective, they're going to have to turtle in for another good 5-10 minutes, because you look at the differences in items, there is a lot of power on the side of MeetYourMakers in comparison to not a great deal, and Kremnik has just been absolutely crushed, forced to flash away. That was just a few abilities being thrown in from both Charu and Thresh. Also Blade of Torment from Makata. And Zyra instantly has to go ahead and recall Dragon. On top of that will be alongside Neptuno. So are they going to seize the day? Are they going to seize the moment here, MeetYourMakers, and push through mid? As I was saying though, lots of powerful items on their side. Triforce, as I mentioned previously, Deathfire Grasp for Ahri, and Aatrox is looking very tanky. Then you look at the side of Gbot, it's looking pretty bare, Pulse. They don't have anywhere near the same amount of damage.
Yeah, they're really capitalizing on their item spikes, knowing that they will hit a power spike when they get certain items, when they get certain levels, and they're capitalizing on it so hard. Level 11, level 16, when you get those second and third levels in the ultimate, when you get those big items like Deathfire Grasp, when you get those Trinity Forces, you can really start to look for opportunities. Often teams will like to wait until several people have different items. Great use of the plant actually blocks the death sentence, but now Mokata jumping in, Niddick to the side, and Chari's ripping through their team, uses the ultimate of the Spirit Rush. Dragon now comes in, 1 versus 4, with the rest of the team forced to back off. Dragon drops, with the box keeping him in place, at 99% reduction on movement speed. Eco and Tremnek left to hold the fort in mid lane. Looks like they will be backing off. Eco charging up the Vault Break, and meanwhile top lane, Dims looks like he's going to be caught. Oh my god, the damage from Kubon! Where did that come from?
Adios, amigo. You just got knocked out, straight up destroyed. Vayne couldn't even move. Counter-strike into death. That was pretty much the way it went there. And they are now looking to push the top lane. 3 players down, one of which has just respawned, which will be Syndra, Neptuno. But that's an inhib falling, very likely. Unless they want to go in for more kills, and that's exactly what they do. Neptuno just came out the death chamber, goes to sit back in there again. And now that will be the inhibitor falling. And as we were saying before, Pulse, simply not enough damage. They cannot go toe-to-toe with MeetYourMakers. And in fact, MeetYourMakers may very well try and finish the game outright. They're taking down the first Nexus tower. They've got enough damage. Death Sentence goes in again. However, Libic does not want to jump on top of this. Renekton is a bit too dangerous with Vi and Vayne underneath the tower. And in fact, Assault and Battering and Macklad smart focus. And actually, they will pick up the kill. So a brief amount of respite for Gbot, but I can't help but feel, Pulse, this is just a drop in the ocean. Yes, you killed Makla, you still just lost your top inhibitor, however.
They have 40 seconds to collect their forts before MYM comes back with a vengeance. And, oh god, that's looking so scary. Jack just picked up the Blades of the Ruin King on top of Trinity Force. He's got all-out damage. Picked up the Ninja Tava yet. Usually you expect to see usually 1 damage item from the top lane and then full tank. Sometimes you can see 2, but he's so confident right now that no one can really duel him. No one can take him out in team fights, and he's riding the fact that early game he's going to be tanky enough to use Counter-Strike and still be able to survive through their bursts, because the only person you really have to deal with is Syndra. While that Counter-Strike up, he's essentially invulnerable to everything else. So for that split second, they can finish the team fight very quickly. And the fact that Jax has been top lane kind of in his own sort of island, that it meant that we didn't really see the sheer power that he's bringing to the table. And it was only when we saw him delete Vayne, we were like, oh, Kubon is actually very strong right now.
Yeah, and I would just like to bring attention to Corky's build as well. I think it's such a good play that Makla went for Triforce into Last Whisper. Instantly just went in. The reason for that is obviously you're going to have a bit of tankiness coming in the form of both Vi and Renekton. Quite a bit of armor there with Randuin's Omen. That's going to cut through them, but also the Gatling gun, which is just going to shred through armor and do chunks of true damage. Now Thresh has just been caught out of position, actually jumping back onto the plant. I'm not sure if that was meant to be or not, but now Makla is going to get caught from Eco. This is going to be the chance that they've been looking for. A nice little engage there. Makla will be falling. They've picked up 2 for 1. Vayne is by and large on full HP. Dark Descent comes out from Makata. He is trying his best to escape. That's going to be a 1 for 3 coming in the form of Gbot, looking very strong right now. Charm lands on Jims. That's going to be the end of this engagement. But that is some light at the end of the tunnel from Gbot. They just have to hope it's not a train coming down to crush them.
That plant was just looking too good for Livic right there. He just had to initiate onto it. We wanted that 5 gold, but that 5 gold has resulted in 3 of his teammates dying, including himself. Dragon is up. They're going to convert this into an objective. It's kind of a pity that that wasn't in top lane, because had that been anywhere else, then they could have transitioned into Baron, and then they could have made a huge headway into coming back into this game, because Gbot, that was really good for them right there. Not only was the initiation poor from Livic, they picked up 1 kill, then Eco jumped in, they dogpiled Eco, so the tankiest member was taking all the pain, all the punishment, and then Gbot could respond with all that damage. They picked up 3 for 1, it looked good, it's given them a bit of time, it's given them a little way back into the game in the sense they picked up 2 kills on top in advantage, and they also picked up the dragon. So we'll see what they can do. After that, it's going to require another kind of misplay, though, from MYM.
And a misplay that certainly was, because I don't want to lump everything on Libic, but Death Sentence has an 18-second cooldown. He used his Death Sentence and then jumped on top of a Zyra plant in the middle of no man's land, really putting himself in a precarious position. So that's a lot of the CC off the table, where he can throw in a Death Sentence, potentially catch out Vayne or Syndra that's no longer a threat. And right as soon as that happened, you could almost feel that Gbots' eyes lit up. The red mist descended and they were like, guys, if we're ever going to go in, the time is now. 3-for-1 trade, very nicely done. However, it's still a drop in the ocean, I feel, Pulse, because look, they're still on their back foot. They're still backs against the wall. They have to come out swinging here, but they're going to have to pick the right moment.
Yeah, rinse and repeat. They're back in the exact same situation they were a second ago. The good news is Gbot have very good picking potential. They have very good potential to get one person out of place. One step wrong, like Livik before, and they're deleted in an instant because of Syndra, one of those exceptional picks in these situations, along with Eco, that he will want to save his ultimate, probably for Makla, probably for Ahri, if she gets herself out of position using her ultimate. Makata takes some hits, but probably the best person of anyone to take those hits, because he can, one, regen it back, but he is also their front line, their tank. Now looking at the potential pick from either one of these teams as they chip away at this turret. Livik also going to be on those front lines, looking for that depth sensor to land onto one of those high-ticket targets, those high-ticket objectives in the form of either Jims or Syndra. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Renekton trying his best. He's playing tower defense. Now MYM pushes the envelope. They get aggressive onto this tower. Now is the time for the initiate, counter-initiate with not only Unleashed Force and the Scatter the Weak, but also the ultimate coming in from Zyra in Stranglethorn. So, back now, originally, but those are some big ultimates going down. Unleashed Force and also the Stranglethorns are going to be very key in keeping them alive underneath a tower dive.
Yeah, but it's still good news there for MeetYourMakers, because look how much damage they did to the inhib tower. They've already got the top one down, so any little bit of damage they can do is going to be more than good for them. However, they need to be careful. Assault and Battery comes in. Charo this time is the person they're going to be focusing down. Does not have this on his hourglass. Beautiful box used there from Thresh, however. Makata's gone down into the Bloodwell. Can they capitalize off this? Yes, they can. Syndra picks up the first kill. Are they going to be jumping back in? Doesn't look likely. Again, they've picked up a kill for 0, but top is taking a bit of damage. Vayne's just gone down, actually, from Jax. So Kubon doing some work. So it's a 1-for-1 trade, and actually really backfiring now as the second goes in. Syndra is now caught out of position. Makla, Makate, also Kubon are all breathing down her neck. That's one pickup. Tremnek goes down as well. And what looked like such a good trade for Gbot initially has now backfired.
I think overall it was 3 for 3, but it's still not ideal, especially when Renekton's having to play tower defense at top lane, making sure that that inhibitor doesn't fall and they push into the Nexus. So it was unfortunate timing. Makla takes some hits from the tower. Econator is still in the bottom lane, doesn't have the ultimate, otherwise you have to feel he would have at least tried his chance at taking down Makla. But it's literally just, honestly, Gbot are trying to play around Kubon because he's doing unbelievable amounts of damage. Like, building 2 damage items this early on into the game, well, 30 minutes isn't early, but in terms of a top laner's build, it is. And it's so much damage, so they just have to kind of play around him, make sure they don't get picked up, because if they go into a trade, especially when they go into skirmishes, like 2 versus 2s, 3 versus 3s, Jax will destroy you.
Yeah, and the reason I say that backfired for Gbot is because initially they got the first pick. Yes, it was a 3 for 3 trade, but look, they lost another inhib tower. If they just backed away or played a bit smarter, then they could have actually came out of that one fairly decent. You know, they could have pushed away the waves, they could have taken some of their jungle, and MeetYourMakers would have needed to have gone back and been a bit more passive. As it stands though, the game is still not over. Both inhibs are alive right now, so they don't have to worry about super minions pushing their base down. They have lost the Nexus tower, which is fairly significant, but now so many pings going down around Baron. It's really a case, I feel, Pulse, who makes that first misstep. At this stage of the game, if MeetYourMakers get aced, they're going to lose a lot of their base.
The ball is in MYM's court. So essentially what they have to do is make sure that they don't get picked up while doing Baron. They don't necessarily have to go for Baron. Ping has gone into the mid lane, Charo brings down some damage, and Gbot pick up an objective, but still 8 towers behind. That's such a big deficit in terms of not only gold, but also map presence and map control. Meanwhile, on the top lane, MYM makes a counterplay, pushing in this inhibitor. This is probably the best course of action because it is an open fight, but Econator goes for the initiate. No, Ahri's in the mid lane. This is a battle against the clock, though, forcing himself back. Now the of the Death Center goes down into the Zhonya's. Now Jim's on the back line. He can't quite connect with anyone. Almost absolutely explodes, but he's still alive and kicking. Dragon forces himself back once again, and Charu finally picks up the kill onto Vayne. Their big key player is down and out, but Charu's so low. Now Zyra heading back into the fray with Econator looking to just try and push them away. Can't go for near stage just as of yet, but now the home god from both Neptuno and his ally are now coming in. They pick up one onto Vi. They look for the second onto Neptuno. Coupon dropping low. He does, however, have the Guardian Angel and usage of Blazes Rune King all flashing up red, but none of them are dropped just as of yet. Livic has fallen, and the rest of the team from MYM look strong.
I'm pretty sure Jims is probably going to disconnect in the next few seconds because he's picked his PC up and he's threw it out the window. Because he died as an auto attack was going to land on Charu. Because he died before the auto attack landed, it cancelled. If it landed, she would have died. Ari would have died there. So I'm pretty sure that Jims is raging right about now, and I can't even blame him. Such a strange fight in the first place, though, where Syndra used Unleash Power on Thresh. So focusing down the support, fairly tanky support at that as well. And on top of that, they had this weird kind of engage where Vi went balls to the wall aggression on Makla, who Valkyried away. And this is what we were talking about before, about isolating Vi from the rest of her team if you have an escape mechanism. That's exactly what they did. And suddenly Vi was like, oh god, I'm in the middle of the enemy team, there's not a great deal that I can do. Just a very strange fight overall.
Yeah, agreed. When he focused Thresh, if it was a different support where they had utility through the rest of the fight, I could understand. But Thresh, once he's blown his cooldowns, when he's blown not only the box but also Flay and Death Sentence, and then he has usage towards the end of it to get people out of dodge using Dark Passage, but he can just use all his cooldowns and then say, okay, I'm done for this fight. So he's not the best target. Death Sentence lands onto them though, with Kata cutting off the escape route. Econator has to go for this initiate. Neptuno from the side, Unleash Power onto Makla, the right target this time, but not enough damage. Into the Zhonya's, Charu training up with Dragon. He's still being chased after. Cordami comes in, auto attack finishes an R. Now Kuban is into the fray, and he's so unbelievably scary with not only the 2 damage items, but also the Guardian Angel. And that will be the end of those hostilities, but not only a 2-1 trade.
Yes, 2-1 trade, but Kuban is still fairly healthy. Makata's going to get his health back very quickly, and Corki doesn't need a great deal of damage to be scary if the rest of the team is a front line for him. So this is going to be an inhib falling. This is what we were talking about before when I said that one misstep could cost one team the game. That's not going to be the case this time around, but it has cost them an inhib, which in the domino effect of League of Legends could prove to be much more dangerous than first thought. Here comes Jax from the side. Kuban has got the counter-strike, and now they've actually focused down Tremnek in a heartbeat. Looking at Jim's Dogflight goes in, he's going to fall as well. And in fact, this could be the GG. Look at the super minions pushing through right now on towards the Nexus towers. They are trying to finish this game off right now before Jim's respawns in 40 seconds. Tremnek is up in 30. Syndra takes down Makla. That's a lot of the auto-attack damage out of the mix actually for this tower. The Nexus Tower, and that should halt them off just for now, Pulse, but that was really, really close.
Approximately 400 HP left on that tower. If it does get to a scenario where they are trying to fight in their own terms, that's all they have left on the board. 10 towers have been taken down by MYM. All of the inhibitors are down as well. That usually signifies the killing blow to a team. 35 minutes in, Gbot have done a phenomenal job staying into this game. Like, it just has to be said. At 20-something minutes, we said this could very well be the game, but they're still going in. They still have the potential to teamfight. They're playing unbelievably well, even though they are more than 10k behind. So we'll see what they can pull out in the next team fight, but there's no real fighting on their own terms apart from that turret, and that's the only last bastion, the only last chance and island they have to kind of survive this next engagement. And Jims walks into his own jungle, gets detonated by Charu, and this really looks bad now.
It does, because that's 3AD carry down for 45 seconds. That is effectively saying, okay, free Baron for us, thank you very much. As if things weren't bad enough with all 3 inhibitors being down, with just one Nexus tower standing. You've now got to deal with a Baron buffed up squad, and now Eco is trying to steal away this Baron. Wrong place at the wrong time from his perspective. Can he make something magical happen? Revolt breaking through on towards Baron. The answer is a resounding no, he cannot. and that is going to be the Baron. Meanwhile, actually, Renekton trying to hold off the onslaught from these super minions, but he's now got 3 lanes worth coming at him. 5 angry, hungry players with Baron buff to boot, and you got Vi dead for 40 seconds. It does not look good here, Pulse. This is pretty much the GG.
We'll see what happens. Flash comes out from Neptuno, and with the Nexus completely exposed, the GG has been called Gbots' spot. And this is the first game going to MYM against Gbots, looking so strong. As we said before, the Polish powerhouses take the first game.